Memory Power Tape number 4. Okay, we still have 3 words on the list that we need to link to items in the floor plan. So here we go. When you open the door to the baby's closet, a stuffed green frog comes to life, hopping up and biting you on your already sore nose. It gives a pained croak as you slam the door. You look in the crib for your baby, but instead you find a plane flying around. Your baby is one of the passengers, and she waves to you as she goes by. On the changing table, you see a man. He is a little big to be getting his diapers changed. All he's wearing, besides his diapers, of course, are coat sleeves. He says, "Let me show you a trick," and then proceeds to pull a nickel out of his sleeve. Now that we've finished, you can see how well you remember the words in the list. Look at the floor plan and see if you can walk through the house and remember all 30 items. If you have the floor plan available, stop the tape and do this now. Well, how well did you do? You should have found it too difficult to remember at least 25 of the words, even if a few did get lost along the way. If you couldn't remember all of them, you can go back and review to reinforce them in your memory. If the links are good enough, one review will lock in all 30 items. If you want to use the LOSI system more often, you should probably get used to using your own LOSI. You may want to make a floor plan of your own home, including all major fixtures that are large enough or unique enough to stand out in your mind. The sooner you get used to your LOSI, the better. Now that you are familiar with the way the LOSI system works, we're going to talk about some additional uses for the LOSI system. Not only does it work to help you remember lists of things, you can also use it to remember ideas and speeches. There is a great advantage to being able to speak without using notes. If you possess this skill, you will command greater attention from your audience. They will be more inclined to listen to what you have to say, and often you will seem more credible to them also. To give a good speech, you should thoroughly prepare an outline of main ideas and important topics that need to be covered. Then, using your own imagination and your natural speaking abilities, fill in the spaces between main ideas with your knowledge of the subject. You will cover all the bases without boring your audience to death. To show you how you can use the LOSI system to give a speech without notes, we will prepare a simple speech. Let's pretend we are talking to a group of ordinary people about using the LOSI system for improving memory. Since this is only an example, we will make it short and use only a brief outline. We'll begin our speech by talking about the meaning of LOSI. To explain the system, we will tell the story about Simonides. Then we will talk about the meaning of the word LOSI and explain the basis of the system, linking things to places. Next, we will give a short demonstration using a hypothetical room. To facilitate your demonstration, you could draw the room, including fixtures and objects, on an overhead projector and explain how to make the links. Then we'll give a second demonstration. This time, we will encourage the audience to use their own homes. We'll give them a list and encourage them to make their own links. We'll provide examples so they will know how to make the links. Lastly, we will have them try making the links and review the concepts. Now we will show you how you can use the LOSI system to memorize this speech. We will go through the concepts and make up links that will show you how you can remember the important parts of the speech. For our LOSI, we will use the floor plan from the workbook that we used previously. First, we want to define LOSI. We will start with its history, and that history starts with Simonides. Here is how you can link this idea to your LOSI so you will remember it. You start walking through your house. The first object you encounter is the plant. Its leaves are extra shiny because you just had it Simonized. If you need help remembering the story about the dinner, you might want to link dinner to couch. You and Simonides had dinner on the couch, or the couch was dripping a nice spaghetti dinner. If you're not sure you will be able to remember that the place where Simonides was having dinner collapsed, you can picture the fireplace collapsing, all the bricks coming down and destroying all the people inside. If you can remember everything you need to say about Simonides from the keyword simonize, you can go directly from the plant to the couch for the next main topic. We'll do that now. You remember that you have to get down low to see the plays being acted out under the couch. This should be enough to remind you that loci means place. To link the next point, we'll move on to the fireplace. The fireplace is covered by a chain link fence. You remember that the whole idea behind the loci system is to link things to places. Link is your key word here. The next main point in the speech you need to remember is the demonstration. To remember this, you could picture yourself holding the piano over your head, showing off, or demonstrating. It should be easy to remember that you need to draw a sample floor plan to make your next point, but you can tie that one down by imagining your fridge covered with an intricate floor plan of your house. We won't create the entire outline for you, but you can see from our examples how it's done. You will notice that the more abstract the idea, the more important substitution becomes. Words like demonstration and Simonides are difficult to remember, but in actuality, the outline for a speech is more likely to be made up of general ideas than specific objects. It is for this reason that word substitution and original awareness are vital. We will discuss linking in more detail later on. We'll talk about what makes a link good, how you can make your links stronger, and some further uses for linking. But first we need to talk about some steps you need to take to make sure you remember the things you store in your memory for as long as you want. An essential part of the process of moving information from short-term to long-term memory is periodic review. For example, you will retain the list of 30 items you just memorized for about 1 day if it isn't reviewed. If you review it once more before you go to bed tonight, once tomorrow, once a week from today, and once a month from now, you will remember it for at least a year. The amount of review needed to store a list of items permanently will vary widely. It will depend on how well the links are forged, the complexity of the information, and the length of the list. You should get into a regular habit of review for important lists. We recommend that you review first 1 hour after you commit the list to memory. Review again 1 day later, and review a third time after 2 weeks. You should review a fourth time in 3 months later, and again 5 months later. Review for a sixth time 1 year later. You may need more reviews, however. If you have reviewed your list 6 times in 1 year, you should be able to retain your list for up to 10 years with little difficulty. Without this periodic review, however, you can count on losing the memory within 5 years. Long-term memory seems to require periodic review. A mnemonic device such as the loci system is a tremendous memory tool because you not only learn the information much more quickly, you also are able to remember it for a much longer period of time with fewer reviews. Later on, we will teach you a new memory system. This system uses some of the same ideas as the loci system, however, it is more simplified and more versatile. But before we begin teaching you this new system, we're going to play a few games. You might call them tests, but games sound like more fun. The purpose of these games, or tests, is to illustrate some essential concepts in memory. For the first test, we will read you a list of 30 items 1 time. After we have read you the list, stop the tape and write down as many words as you can remember. Try to remember them in order. But for the sake of this test, don't use the loci system to store them. Here are the words: ice cream, checkbook, salt, wig, shoe, maple syrup, bow tie, propeller, ocean, castle, cat, diamond, coffee cup, mirror, spider, bus, hose, seeds, glasses, sheep, textbook, dart, price tag, cherry, rattlesnake, telephone, Santa Claus, tent, golf ball, mountain. Okay, we've come to the end of the list. Stop the tape now and write down as many of them as you can remember. Now that you're finished writing down the words you remembered from the first list, we're ready to start the second test. For this test, we have another list of words. We will read this list, and when we're done, stop the tape and write down as many of the words as you can remember. Again, don't use the loci or any other system to memorize. Here is the second list of words. Plate, wish, far, help, feeble, newborn, corpse, mouthful, stupor, fermata, Mozart, helpless, sleep, reply, grim reaper, play, rotten banana, interloper, Mississippi, dead skunk, nimble, foot, memory, written, necromancer, 300-pound gold bar, newborn, genital, newborn, spell, pleasant, justified, ambulance, pen, pool, slant, parlance, leprosy, phallic, tarantula, universal, scared, stimulate, jungle. Okay, stop the tape now and write down as many words as you can remember. We'll talk about the results of the first test you took later. For now, let's look at the results of the second test you took. Take out the list of words you remembered. We'll bet you remembered these words: rotten banana, Mississippi, dead skunk, newborn, corpse, leprosy, tarantula, Mozart, gold bar, genital, phallic, grim reaper. We think you also may have remembered these words: stimulate, plate, play, ambulance, memory, necromancer, fermata. The words you probably didn't remember were wish, pen, far, slant, stupor, written, sleep, mouthful, interloper, pleasant, help, universal, helpless, reply. We have used these tests to illustrate some important concepts about the mnemonic system you will learn next, the link system. You met a limited form of the link system when you were introduced to the loci system. As we built the list of items, you may have noticed an almost flowery use of adjectives. The reason why we used so many adjectives is because they serve a vital purpose. The brain has a natural tendency to store best what is most remarkable. It is the prettiest and the ugliest faces we remember, the fattest and skinniest people. Because our minds seem to put a memory handle on remarkable things, places, people, and ideas, it makes sense that a good mnemonic device would make use of remarkable details to engrave indelible images. We're going to talk about some tools that will help you make things more memorable. Exaggeration is a key tool in making things more memorable. Which is easier to remember, an apple the size of a fist or an apple the size of Mount Rushmore? Is one cockroach more memorable or a seething mass of 10,000 cockroaches? Things can be recalled better if they are enormous, gigantic, massive, or in hordes and crowds of millions. This principle also works in the opposite direction. A single tiny flame in a dark closet is remarkable for its smallness, as is a tiny table with miniature diners eating teeny tiny steaks. This reverse form of exaggeration allows the object to be remembered because it is remarkable. Another tool that makes things more memorable is nonsense. We can remember things like a banana cream pie in someone's face better than things that are routine. The attitude of being ridiculous, nonsensical, or ludicrous sets a thing apart. Landing a plane near your home isn't nearly as effective an image as landing a plane on or in your home. A plastic eyeball floating in a toilet is perhaps disturbing, but not nearly as memorable as a living eyeball looking up at you, seeping blood into the water. Motion will also help to make things more memorable, which is easier to remember. A brick sitting on a chair, or the same brick falling from a 10-story building and tearing right through the chair. Motion adds a unique dimension to anything. A jack-in-the-box that sits in a closet is entirely different from a jack-in-the-box that jumps out when you open the door, smacking you in the nose. Another tool important in making things memorable is uniqueness. Almost anything that makes something stand apart from the crowd will qualify as memorable. Mississippi is an unusual word in and of itself, plus it was the only state in the list. That makes it memorable in the list in Test 2. Mozart was the only person. This helped him stand out. Repetition is also important in helping you remember things. In our last list, we read the word newborn 3 times. The first time you heard it, you may have not paid much attention. But the second and third time, you may have thought that you had heard it before. This probably helped you remember the word. Although we will not be using repetition to memorize a list of items, we will see how repetition can be used to make the things you want to remember permanent features in long-term memory. Meaning will also help you remember things. The more meaning a word has for you, the more likely you are to recall it. Almost anything that evokes an emotional response is easy to remember. If it makes you disgusted, embarrassed, sickened, sleepy, happy, or if it causes a spark of emotion, it'll be remembered. The words in the second list, that for most people have an emotional impact, were probably ones you remembered. For disgust, the words you may have remembered are leprosy, corpse, dead skunk, and rotten banana. These words may have embarrassed you, so you may have remembered them. Genital, phallic, and stimulate. The words grim reaper, corpse, and tarantula may have aroused the emotion of fear, so you may have remembered them. Gold bar may have provoked the emotion of greed in you, so you may have remembered this item on the list. Familiarity is another effective tool that will help you remember things. The more familiar a thing is, the easier it is to remember. We don't mean to undermine what we have said previously about bizarreness and uniqueness. In this case, we are talking about familiar versus unfamiliar. Words in the list that we read at the beginning of this tape that may have been unfamiliar and that had no meaning at all to you, such as interloper and fermata, were probably forgotten. It is true that familiar words such as mouthful, pleasant, universal, and reply are also easily forgotten, but some words are familiar and have a special meaning that helps in storage. For example, fermata may be unfamiliar to anyone other than a musician and therefore hard to remember. But for a musician, the fermata is a familiar word with a special meaning. Therefore, you can remember it easier than another routine familiar word. Another good example of this concept is the word memory. This word was one of the words in the list that you were likely to remember. Most people will remember this word while using this study course because their minds are already concentrating on the subject of memory. Memory is a familiar word with a special meaning. Familiarity can breed forgetfulness, however. A familiar word is still more easily recalled than an unfamiliar word. The different factors we have discussed, exaggeration, nonsense, motion, uniqueness, repetition, meaning, and familiarity are the best ways to make a memory more remarkable and memorable. But to help you even more, you can use adjectives to bring objects to life. The rotten banana and dead skunk, the gory eyeball, the postcard singing flap, 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 all add an element of interest and flavor that will help you remember. Color, smell, sound, and touch can all aid in storing a memory. A skunk is easier for most people to remember than a cat because of its unique odor. There's something so memorable about a dead skunk that hearing it read in a list of words is likely to help it stand out from the other words and evoke a memory. The next memory system you are about to learn makes use of all the memory aids we have just discussed. This system is called the link system. When you learned the LOCI system, you had the chance to link objects to fixtures in your home. The LOCI system is an excellent system for remembering a limited list of objects, and it was the system of choice for many years. However, along the way it was found that objects could also be linked to one another, thus eliminating the need for a LOCI. The link system is the method of linking objects to one another. We will discuss it in more detail on the next tape.